And you've got 50, 60,000 troops on the border with Israel. You have a seething cauldron of discontent in Egypt and anger because the Egyptian government has been unwilling to act against the Israelis on behalf of the population of Gaza. I'm surprised that there's not more trouble than we've already seen inside Egypt. But Sisi has surrendered, I think, to a large extent to American influence. And remember, we pump billions of dollars into Egypt, and he doesn't want to lose those subsidies. But again, this is all very fragile. And, the Israelis, they've been very open about their dislike of the Egyptians. They don't like the Egyptian forces in Syria. And if you put the map up of Greater Israel, the so-called Greater Israel project that many people in the West are not taking seriously, I do. They very definitely in Israel believe that everything essentially from the Suez to the Euphrates should be part of this thing they call Greater Israel. It may not all be realized this year, but that's where they want to go. And we are now part and parcel of it. And that brings me to the other piece of this equation. We know Langley and the CIA is very heavily involved all over the region in subverting and attacking enemies of the United States and Israel. Those are, even if those people really aren't enemies, it doesn't matter. And they're interested in subverting at every turn Iranian influence and power in the region, particularly in Iran and Iraq. But that's not the biggest chunk at this stage for our consideration. The other is CENTCOM. U.S. Central Command has become a very, very powerful entity within the broader national security framework. Apparently, CENTCOM provides the intelligence directly to the White House, and General Kurilla is widely thought to be closer to Prime Minister Netanyahu than he is to President Trump, which is a strange sort of phenomenon. He also seems to be very gung-ho about the use of American military power wherever possible to extend Israeli power and influence. So we think there's joint planning going on between the Israelis and CENTCOM about the potential use of American military power. How much? Where would that be? I mean, who knows? But I think it's pretty obvious that General Kurilla is involved with that. Then, of course, you have the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he's endeared himself to President Trump. I guess President Trump liked him because he thought he was a quote-unquote tough guy as an Air Force general committing air power against people in the region when he was president, trying to fight ISIS, the very people that he now embraces in Syria. And this man sat on the board of a hedge fund that I guess is headed by Jared Kushner's brother. Now, whether or not that means anything politically, I don't know, but I suspect that this man Kane did not get his job if he had any reservations about embroiling U.S. air and naval power, or potentially even special ops or ground forces in the region, working closely with Israel to achieve Israel's aims.
He was a retired three-star who apparently ran into Trump at a MAGA rally during the 2024 campaign. There's no sense delving into their relationship. Somebody, whether a four-star or a deputy secretary of defense, is going to get through to Trump that his bombing mission failed. What is he going to do next? Is he going to use low-yield nuclear weapons to satisfy Netanyahu's bloodlust?
You do have advocates in the air and naval circles for the use of low-yield nuclear weapons. They've always been there. A few years ago, there were people in Congress, and I say at least 10 years or more, who were raising the alarm about funding low-yield nuclear warheads for use on cruise missiles and so forth. And they rightly pointed out, how does the enemy distinguish the so-called low-yield nuclear warhead from a major nuclear attack? And the answer was, well, we think they'll figure that out. But that wasn't widely accepted. But nevertheless, they funded it. So now we have these weapons, and there is always a temptation to turn to them on the assumption that that weapon alone will do the damage that that we need in order to quote unquote win the conflict. I hope not, but that's with us. That's always been with us. And I think Elbridge Colby, who is in the Department of Defense as a undersecretary or something, was once an advocate for that. I don't know if he's changed his mind, as he seems to have changed his mind on a number of things, as almost everybody who finally got on board with the Trump administration did.
We came across a very interesting interview with Senator John Kennedy doing his country bumpkin routine, but of course he's a graduate of Harvard Law School and has a degree in philosophy from Cambridge University. Nevertheless, this is the way he portrays himself. Some of this is pabulum, but the last question and the last answer is profound, and I invite your attention to it. Chris, cut number 7.
Before Israel and America did what we did, Iran was within days of having a nuclear weapon. Now
within days?
Within days.
That's what they told you in this briefing?
Within days.
Sir, just to kind of circle back and put a finer point on this, the days that they were to getting a bomb, that seems to be different from what Tulsi Gabbard had testified to in March. Was there a new assessment? Was that the Israeli assessment? Was that a new American assessment? Was that information new to you in this briefing?
It was new to me. This was a good briefing. It was one of the best I've ever attended. I mean, Rubio, Hegseth, Ratcliffe, General Kane, they didn't bring out a script and read carefully from it. They just looked us in the eye and talked to us.
The assessment that said that Iran was within days of having a bomb, is that Israeli or American assessment?
I don't know.
Is that Israeli or an American assessment? I don't know.
Well, if you're a senator sitting in the United States Senate, I think I'd be very concerned about the source of the assessment. And if it were foreign, because Israel, contrary to popular belief, is a foreign state with interests that do not necessarily align with ours, then I would like to know that. In fact, I'd like to know why I am listening to an Israeli assessment. So the otherwise usually adroit Senator Kennedy made a mistake, Judge, don't you think?
Yes, I do. I don't know when this is going to come back to haunt him or become a big deal. This statement was made 2 days ago.
Well, you know, Judge, that reminds me of something I read in Stimson's papers. Stimson, of course, was the Secretary of War, and he was writing about Pearl Harbor, and he wrote, "Thank God the Japanese attacked us on the 7th of December. If they hadn't, we would have had to attack them in order to get this war started 2 weeks later." Now, that's in Stimson's papers.
I think this is the same set of Stimson papers that reveal not only was he grateful that they attacked, but he knew the attack was coming. And 2,700 18-year-old sailors went to a watery grave.
No, that's right. And, I'm just saying that it's disturbing to me that, he says, well, I don't know if this was an Israeli source or an American source. I would always insist on knowing the source. And if it did not have a legitimate American stamp on it, then I would be very reluctant to accept it. That's not to say that the Israelis don't have good intelligence. They frequently do. But we also know that since 1995, Mr. Netanyahu has been telling us that they are within months, and then a month, and then weeks, and then 1 week, and then days, and now hours. I mean, come on. How often do we have to march down this trail? But
right.
Money has a habit of making things go down and making things more palatable than they otherwise would be. And I'm sure that there's lots of Israel lobby money involved that makes this attractive.
Colonel, I'm sure you noticed, as I did, whose name was missing: Rubio, Hegseth, Ratcliffe, General Kane. How about Director Ratcliffe's boss, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, Rubio is somebody that he knows, who is a card-carrying member of the Israeli club, a lobby member almost. And I think that that's probably enough. Hegseth is too new. Tulsi Gabbard's already alienated people by not unilaterally signing up without question for whatever the Israelis want. That leaves you with Radcliffe, and Radcliffe is, as Max Blumenthal has pointed out, a protege of the lobby. He was created from nothing, came out of nowhere, knowing nothing, and has advanced all the way to the top of the CIA. And he is there for one reason and only one reason. That's what the Israeli lobby wanted in the job.
Here we are. Is that an Israeli or an American assessment? I don't know. He might as well have said, I don't know, and I didn't ask. I'm sure that's rather obvious.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate, but I wish that wish he had asked. But then again, we understand what the real conditions are on the Hill. These decisions are not in their hands. They know that. They want to be on the winning team. Remember your discussion about Charlie Rangel? And
right.
You talked about the fact that Rangel said, no, we're not going to object to anything the president does. And if he's successful, we'll cheer him. And if he's not, then we'll attack him. And I think that's true for all of these people. They'll go along with all of this, but when it fails miserably, or we end up in a confrontation with the Russians or the Chinese or someone else, or if the Iranians target something that's very sensitive to us and we lose a lot of people, I think that they'll find themselves miraculously on a different side, don't you?
Yes. Thank you, Colonel. Thanks very much for your analysis, particularly that very long and informative analysis, which is not covered in the West here, about what's happening with Azerbaijan and Turkey.
By the way, I would ask everybody to pay attention to it because the Armenians are in a very, very weak position. Their government has handled things badly. Their only hope is that the Russians will assist them, because I don't see any evidence that we will. We don't seem to care about Christians at all.
No, we don't. Very sad, but very illuminating. Thank you, Colonel. Thanks for your time. All the best. Have a great Independence Day weekend. We're independent from London, but are we independent from Washington?
No. I was talking earlier to a Norwegian friend, Glenn Deason, and I said, you've got to resurrect Harald Hardrada, the great Viking that got killed outside of York and tried to invade England in 1066. Maybe he can put some iron back into the souls of Norwegians. And he laughed. I'm beginning to think we need to resurrect George Washington, because if he were here and he watched the extent to which we have been manipulated by foreign powers and influence, I think there would be a new revolution.
Maybe one's coming. Thank you, Colonel. All the best. Have a great holiday. We'll see you next week.
Same to you. Bye.